I have to thank Christine for creating Area, because I think that this ecosystem, like you like to say, is a very unique environment where, compared to maybe 20 or 30 years ago, where we would be selling technology and saying, rah, 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 it's going to work, you know, no matter what. The curious thing that I've been noticing in all the presentations are, be careful, plan properly, what are the risks, figure out the business case. And I think that as early adopters, which I think by definition the group that's here is, I think that now, after leaving this session, you are armed to the teeth to handle the IT departments, the cultural changes, the financial departments. So I'm going to skip over several slides, but it's okay because basically my colleagues have covered them. And what I want to do is give you sort of a closing summary so that you will feel a little bit more confident, for those of you that this is all new, you know, what's telepresence, what's virtual reality, what's augmented reality. We all kind of struggle with the definition of what these things are. And I think that going back to the priority, which is the business case, it really depends on what you want to do and what your pain is in your particular organization. We're not talking about security in the personal space. This is enterprise. I don't think anybody manages their security correctly in their personal space. You know, who takes the time to really determine what apps access what information on your phone. So even access to information is becoming very important for consumer products like Airbnb that are proactively trying to address the privacy or security concerns of their customers. And security has always been an issue for all humans. This is the Playboy Mansion, which had great security but had a tunnel underneath for those that wanted to get in. So there's always going to be workarounds, backdoors, security risks. So AR, VR is no different. That security is something that is always going to be present as a concern, and you're never going to have 100% security. Identity verification is becoming the standard across the entire world, but as much as you can identify somebody, you have issues like tailgating, identity theft that continue to happen as things become more and more sophisticated. And going back historically, the Trojan Horse is something that we actually call a virus now. So it's been with us for centuries and will continue to be. Even the human virus is based upon tricking the human immunity system into thinking it's something else. And we know that, as Matt was mentioning, and the biometric identification is probably going to be more and more used because, frankly, a piece of plastic is probably not the best way to identify somebody. But even with biometric identification, we know that Tom Cruise got through the people that were pursuing him by changing his eyes. So I'm going to kind of elevate the discussion to sort of try to give you an intellectual framework or philosophical framework for AR, similar to what the Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics were, which I think are very elegant in the sense of giving us a framework that we can then think about security. And we talk about telepresence, remote viewer, which can be something as sophisticated as this, where somebody is operating a remote astronaut. We have this view of what we've seen in a movie recently, Kingsman, but was shown in Star Wars. This is obviously augmented reality. We could be meeting right now in a telepresence manner. And then we have augmented reality, which here are 2 glass versions. And of course, we have the virtual reality, something that doesn't exist that we can all interact with, but that you might blend that telepresence, the augmented reality, and the virtual reality in what may be appropriate for you. And you've seen that I have a demo set up outside for what our thing is telepresence and virtual reality and augmented reality kind of blended together for the oil and gas, aerospace, and construction business. So getting back to the laws. I think that companies like Augmate that Pete has mentioned are going to handle a lot of these things that IT departments are going to require in terms of, you know, basically access in the IT space. But I wanted to give you, I'm going to step through what I consider to be like a 7-level model for security. This is just basic, you know, security's confidentiality, integrity, that the message cannot be modified, and obviously security is non-existent if it's not usable. You know, if the ID device is not turned on, there's no security. So I would start, and this may sound very basic, but I think that AREA's purpose is to be very sincere, and I think that that's been demonstrated in all the presentations. We're going to tell you what we think are things that might be missing in the space. So the absolute necessity at the bottom level is that these devices must have an unalterable device ID. This is obvious in a phone, in an IMEI, where you can turn off the phone remotely, and this should be the same case in a augmented reality, virtual reality, wearable device. And I think Pete addressed that very well, where we don't even know if this belt could be recording you or my watch. So, but we need to know what that device is. That device needs to be able to be pinged when it's in a physical space. We have to work, obviously, in a trusted network with confidentiality, integrity of messaging, and availability. So in other words, the message is transferred over the wire, over the air, so we need to work with a trusted network. This is something that also is very important. I need to be able to verify who I am, whether I'm wearing a watch, a helmet, AR device, that I can verify who I am and who I'm talking to. And then this is we're getting higher levels. Provide the accuracy and source of information. I want to know that I'm not being sent wrong information or somebody has hacked into my system and now an AR device is showing me, is telling me to go forward, and maybe there's a hole in the ground and somebody has done that maliciously. Then we get further and further in sophistication, and this is all basic knowledge for people that are in big corporate environments. But we need to have activity auditing. And the intention must be proper of those who are using the devices, but we need to also know if something wrong happens, who did it, and how far into the system they got. Privacy has been mentioned. I think that we all have to be proactive and prepare ourselves for what may be some of the issues that the pushback from users in the corporate environment that simply may not want somebody recording what they're doing at work. And this has come up with clients related to, it's been mentioned several times, to unions. The unions don't particularly care for people, for supervisors knowing exactly where somebody is at all times, because you can imagine that a list of bathroom breaks ranked by who got fired would not play very well. And frankly, at the end, at the top level, it's the concept of do no harm. I mean, I know that Google has this as their corporate policy, but AR has to be oriented in a corporate rollout in the sense of first really focusing on the positive. And I think Matt addressed this as well in terms of selling the positive benefits that result from safety and from avoiding problems that might occur. So these are the 7. I think this is all in the area website. And I also wanted to introduce another thing which I think is very important, and this is more technical, so I'll just go over it very quickly, but I'm available after for any particular questions. And this is that the devices need to ping send some information to an external server that can verify its identity. And this could be a third-party server, or it could be an in-house server. But this gets into cryptography, and there are providers that generate seeds, cryptography seeds, so that these devices cannot be easily hacked, and that these seeds would be changed regularly in the same manner as a key code generator would do when you access your bank account. All the information that's transmitted is encrypted. I think that we must proactively, and I'm sorry to say that the early adopters of these technologies are probably going to be real pioneers and real heroes in their corporations, because we're loading them with all sorts of mostly don'ts. And here's an obvious example. I mean, when you have this on your phone, how do you know the information is valid, who it comes from, or if you really should pay attention to it? Take that to a corporate environment. Who issued the information, and can I drill down and get back to who actually put it out? And the activity auditing is something that has to be done on a continuous basis. Obviously, it's not just put in your password and you can use your glasses all day. You might walk into areas that are not proper, and so you need to track that use continuously. Here's a couple of things that I find quite useful and unusual. This is a company that talks about, let's say you're in your corporate office and you have something on a whiteboard, and you want to make clear to others that nobody that walks through should be recording this. Even during presentations, what this shows is that a double line with an interior broken line would actually make an AR device black it out. I know it's very sophisticated, it's probably not reasonable to do now, but that might be a cultural change that starts to occur within the corporate environment. If I, on a whiteboard, put a double line with interior broken line, that means this is not to be disseminated, it's not to be recorded, or in a presentation, maybe I want to share something that's confidential and I prefer not to share it on the internet, so I prefer not to have somebody photograph it. Then there's fancier gestural things that might be stretching your fingers out like this to cover something that you don't want recorded, or gestures that would be internationally understood, like if you go like this, an AR device would black out. Just finishing, confidentiality is an issue that privacy will be something that can come back and hurt us if we don't address. Here's some examples. These devices that were very sophisticated were taken off the market in the United States because basically we were walking through the airport naked. And again, younger people are more likely to share all their information online. Older people are less, but I think that's probably because my 16-year-old daughter is constantly online and sharing everything that she does during the day, so they're more used to sharing information. And just finishing, that what we should really do as an industry, both as providers and as buyers, is to instill and insist on a do no harm. Let's not kill the goose of the golden eggs by trying to do things that are inappropriate or society is not ready for. Jim Novak, and thank you for your attention.